There is a quiet weight that lives inside some people, one that is invisible to the outside world, yet profoundly shaping every moment of their existence. On the surface, they move through life seamlessly. They wake up, shower, eat breakfast, check emails, and go about their day with a rhythm that appears natural, efficient, and effortless. To the outside observer, they seem organized, disciplined, and unshakably composed. They are the reliable friends, the consistent employees, the partners who always have it together. Everyone admires their calmness, their productivity, their ability to manage life without complaint. But inside, something very different is happening. Beneath the polished exterior is a subtle, continuous tension. They are functioning but not living. Their bodies move, their minds solve problems, their words convey clarity, but the internal world is muted. Joy, excitement, grief, longing, or even simple curiosity are dulled. They observe themselves as if from a distance, performing all the actions of life without inhabiting the sensations that make those actions meaningful. Their internal landscape feels like a glass-walled room. The machinery of their mind works perfectly, but the warmth, the spontaneity, the vibrancy of life rarely reaches them. Psychologists often describe this as a state of high-functioning detachment. It is not laziness, disorder, or incapacity. On the contrary, it is an extreme form of adaptation, a nervous system strategy developed in response to past pressures, neglect, or trauma. When life demanded competence and reliability above all else, the brain learned to protect itself by suppressing the intensity of internal experience. Emotions, impulses, and needs were quietly locked away to avoid disruption or failure. Over time, this protective mechanism calcified into personality, forming an identity around efficiency and resilience rather than spontaneity or presence. For those in this state, the day-to-day is a series of performances. Breakfast, commute, meetings, chores, and social interactions are all executed with precision. Their prefrontal cortex is constantly active, sequencing tasks, planning responses, and monitoring behavior to ensure they meet the expectations of the world. At the same time, the deeper layers of their brain, the systems that generate sensation, pleasure, and internal feedback, are muted. The dorsal vagal complex, an ancient part of the autonomic nervous system, engages to keep overwhelming sensations at bay, creating a physiological freeze that allows the body to move without being fully present. This hybrid state, simultaneously active and immobilized, permits them to survive high-pressure situations, navigate complex social dynamics, and maintain the illusion of stability. But it comes at a profound cost. Every interaction, every task, every achievement is paid for with energy that is invisible, unacknowledged, and slowly depleting. Sleep does not fully restore them. Relaxation feels incomplete, and even moments meant for joy are filtered through layers of detachment. Life becomes a sequence of obligations, efficiently completed but emotionally empty. People around them cannot detect this silent struggle. When they try to signal distress, the world often interprets it as exaggeration or sees no signal at all. There is no visible collapse, no dramatic outburst, no acute crisis. Instead, there is an internal erosion, a quiet exhaustion that is physiologically and psychologically taxing. Over time, they begin to accept the detachment as who they are. They internalize the belief that needing help is weakness, that feeling deeply is a liability, and that life is something to be executed rather than experienced. Over time, this state of high-functioning detachment begins to shape not just behavior but identity itself. The very concept of self becomes intertwined with performance. They are not just a person experiencing life. They are the competent employee, the reliable friend, the unflappable partner. Every action reinforces the image, every compliment or recognition strengthens the facade. And yet, beneath the surface, the internal world remains distant, muted, and uninhabited. Relationships are particularly affected. While they can perform love, care, and support with precision, the emotional resonance is often missing. Partners may notice a subtle absence, a distance that words cannot convey. Friends may feel that they are always there, but never fully present. The detachment acts as both armor and barrier. It protects from overwhelm, disappointment, and emotional unpredictability, but it also prevents true intimacy. Sharing vulnerability feels like a risk too high to take because vulnerability could awaken the sensations they have carefully suppressed for years. At work, the detachment becomes a superpower. They can make rational decisions without being influenced by personal emotions, maintain focus under extreme pressure, and manage complex projects with apparent ease. Superiors and colleagues often view them as dependable, stable, and exceptionally capable. Yet this very competence is also a trap. It creates a cycle of increasing responsibility, higher expectations, and further reliance on their suppressed state to maintain performance. Saying no becomes nearly impossible because refusal could destabilize the carefully constructed image of reliability. The physiological toll is profound. The nervous system remains on high alert even during rest, scanning for potential disruptions or unmet demands. Sleep may come, but the body does not fully relax. Cortisol levels remain elevated, the heart rate may remain slightly higher than necessary, and subtle tension persists in muscles and joints. This chronic hypervigilance slowly erodes both physical and mental health. Over time, people in this state often experience psychosomatic symptoms: headaches, digestive issues, chronic fatigue, and immune suppression. The body is working tirelessly, even as the self feels distant and disengaged. Inside their mind, the dissonance grows. They intellectually understand the joys, the spontaneity, the vibrancy of life, but they cannot access the raw emotional experience. A sunset may look beautiful, a child's laughter may sound delightful, a compliment may be acknowledged, but the internal resonance is muted. Emotions are filtered through layers of calculation, control, and self-monitoring. They have learned to survive by suppressing the intensity of feeling, and the survival strategy has become the dominant mode of existence. The origins of this adaptation are often subtle and complex. Early life experiences, periods of high pressure, environments that prioritized achievement over emotional development, and trauma can all contribute. The nervous system, in its innate intelligence, discovers a formula for survival. If feeling deeply results in pain, rejection, or chaos, then feeling less becomes safer. Over time, this safety strategy becomes automatic, almost indistinguishable from personality. Asking for help, expressing need, or seeking emotional connection is gradually inhibited, not because they lack capacity, but because their nervous system has learned that these actions are unsafe or unreliable. And yet, despite the deep entrenchment of this survival mechanism, there remains a quiet longing beneath the surface, a yearning for connection, vitality, and presence. Even the most disciplined, highly functioning individuals occasionally sense the gap between the life they are performing and the life they are meant to inhabit. This awareness can manifest as subtle restlessness, a recurring sense of emptiness, or moments of inexplicable melancholy. The contrast between external competence and internal detachment creates a tension that is difficult to articulate, but impossible to ignore. The paradox of living in this state is that success becomes both a shield and a cage. Every achievement, every task completed flawlessly, reinforces the notion that suppression of feeling is not only acceptable but necessary. They are praised for reliability, lauded for efficiency, admired for composure. But each accolade is a reminder that their vitality is being sacrificed in service of performance. The more they excel externally, the more hollow the internal landscape can become. Daily routines often resemble a carefully orchestrated performance. Even leisure becomes structured, planned, and optimized for productivity. Vacations are filled with activities, weekends scheduled with tasks disguised as relaxation. Spontaneity is minimized because it risks unpredictability. They have learned to find security in control, yet control comes at the cost of freedom, joy, and authentic emotional experience. Every carefully maintained routine is a layer of armor, insulating the self from both pain and pleasure. Social interactions are navigated with precision. They have mastered the art of responding appropriately, smiling when expected, empathizing on cue, and engaging in conversation with exactly the right balance of interest and detachment. Yet, beneath these finely tuned behaviors lies a disconnect. Listening becomes an act of observation rather than engagement. Conversation becomes data to process rather than an exchange of experience. Their friends and colleagues see the outward competence, but the inner observer, the part of them that truly inhabits life, remains dormant, watching from behind an invisible barrier. Romantic relationships are similarly affected. They may appear caring, attentive, and supportive, yet true emotional intimacy is difficult to achieve. The ability to synchronize with another person's emotions, the subtle fluctuations of joy, fear, excitement, or sadness, is impaired. Partners may feel a persistent subtle void, a sense that while the other is physically present, their emotional self is absent. This is not due to lack of love or empathy. It is the result of a nervous system trained to survive by suppressing vulnerability. The very traits that make them dependable, consistency, calmness, reliability, also make them emotionally inaccessible. Over years, the cumulative effect of this functional detachment shapes worldview and self-concept. Life is approached through a lens of efficiency and control. Emotions are categorized as useful or disruptive, and experiences are filtered for their impact on performance rather than their inherent richness. Personal milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, achievements are observed rather than celebrated. Joy is measured by how it affects productivity, not how it feels internally. The vibrancy of existence is muted, replaced by a grayscale of calculated responses and steady output. Physiologically, the cost is ongoing and pervasive. The sympathetic nervous system remains partially activated, maintaining readiness for potential stressors. The dorsal vagal complex intermittently clamps down, creating a cycle of internal numbing. This duality, performing while detaching, requires significant metabolic resources, creating chronic strain on the body. Muscle tension, persistent headaches, gastrointestinal issues, and sleep disruptions become routine, yet are often rationalized as minor inconveniences rather than signals of internal collapse. Cognitive patterns also adapt to support the survival strategy. Decision-making prioritizes predictability and safety. Risk is calculated not just in terms of outcomes, but in terms of emotional exposure. Creativity, spontaneity, and exploration may be suppressed because they introduce uncertainty. Even internal thoughts are monitored, filtered, and managed. The mind becomes a disciplined instrument, trained to suppress impulses, manage perception, and avoid emotional overreach. Freedom of thought and authenticity is traded for reliability and stability. And yet, awareness persists. Deep within, there is recognition that something essential has been sacrificed. Moments of quiet, unscheduled, unobserved time may trigger flashes of emptiness or longing. They sense that life is being observed rather than lived, that achievements feel hollow, that relationships feel partially ghosted. These moments can be disorienting, even frightening, because they expose the gap between external competence and internal experience. But they also represent the first step toward reclamation, the acknowledgement that survival does not equate to living, and that the internal world deserves as much attention as external performance. The challenge of reclaiming life from this state is that the very strategies which allowed survival have become invisible chains. They are habits disguised as strengths. Their competence, composure, and self-sufficiency, once vital shields, now limit emotional depth. Even the notion of rest is reframed. Pauses are only valuable if productive, moments of stillness are laden with anxiety, and leisure feels inefficient. The brain has learned to equate safety with control, and control with constant engagement. Letting go feels like danger. Ironically, the people around them often misinterpret their detachment as perfection. Colleagues admire their productivity, friends appreciate their calm demeanor, and family members rely on their steadiness. Yet, this admiration reinforces the pattern. Every compliment, every acknowledgement of capability, subtly validates the suppression of feeling. The nervous system, ever efficient, internalizes the reinforcement. Emotional openness, spontaneity, and vulnerability are not only unnecessary, they feel unsafe. The result is a life that is externally flourishing but internally restricted, an elegant machine with a muted heart. One of the most profound consequences manifests in decision-making about the self. Because so much energy is allocated to maintaining performance, there is little left to explore desires, passions, or curiosity. Choices are guided by logic, efficiency, and safety rather than personal fulfillment. The hobbies they pursue often feel like projects, obligations rather than pleasures. Vacations are planned meticulously, relationships are approached cautiously, and creativity is disciplined to the point of rigidity. Spontaneous exploration, the very thing that makes life vibrant, is suppressed to maintain internal equilibrium. Over time, this functional detachment extends beyond the self. Empathy for others remains, but is filtered through a lens of caution. Emotional engagement with friends, colleagues, and partners is measured, observed, and sometimes limited to protect the fragile inner system. They may support others generously, offer logical advice, and appear emotionally available, but deep resonance is withheld. This selective presence creates subtle distance in relationships, often leading to feelings of isolation or being misunderstood, despite their outward reliability and connection. The psychological impact of living this way is cumulative. Emotional suppression increases sensitivity to minor disruptions, heightens stress reactivity, and can create a chronic low-level anxiety that is invisible to outsiders. They experience a constant internal tension, a silent hum of vigilance, while simultaneously executing tasks with mechanical precision. Their brain is wired to anticipate failure, neglect, or disappointment, creating a perpetual cycle where control feels essential, yet the very act of control reinforces emotional isolation. Biologically, the repercussions are significant. The autonomic nervous system remains on edge, oscillating between subtle activation and numbing shutdown. Chronic stress hormones circulate, increasing inflammation, disrupting sleep, and impacting overall health. Mental clarity and focus may remain intact, but creativity, joy, and deep emotional presence diminish. Life becomes a series of checklists, accomplishments, and outputs rather than experiences and connections. Moments of beauty, love, and awe are registered cognitively but rarely felt viscerally. And yet, within this mechanized existence, there exists a flicker of awareness. Occasionally, a sunset might catch them off guard. A song may stir a hidden emotion, or a quiet conversation may hint at the depth of connection they are missing. These glimpses, though fleeting, remind them that they are alive and capable of feeling more than the controlled, calculated performance they have perfected. They are signals that the nervous system, though conditioned for survival, retains the potential for restoration. Recognizing this internal tension is the first step toward reclaiming life. It begins with awareness, noticing the patterns of suppression, acknowledging the hollow moments behind external success, and validating the unmet needs of the self. It requires courage to see that efficiency and achievement, while valuable, cannot replace authentic living. Only by confronting the discomfort of quiet, the vulnerability of presence, and the fear of unpredictability can the nervous system begin to recalibrate. The journey toward reconnecting with life requires intentional unlearning. It means noticing the habits that once kept you safe but now limit your vitality. It means observing your internal dialogue and recognizing the ways you silence needs, desires, and emotions in service of control. Every micro-decision, from suppressing a sigh to delaying a pause, has been conditioned over years, and reversing this pattern is neither simple nor linear. There will be moments of resistance, self-doubt, and discomfort. This is not failure. It is evidence that the nervous system is beginning to notice its own rigidity. Social relationships provide both challenges and opportunities in this process. When you begin to allow genuine emotion, some connections may feel strained, even if only temporarily. People who are accustomed to your efficiency and predictability may be unsettled by your vulnerability, uncertainty, or spontaneity. It may feel lonely at first because you are recalibrating the ways in which you give and receive emotional energy. But over time, authentic presence fosters deeper bonds. True connection does not thrive in control. It flourishes in the interplay of openness, imperfection, and mutual vulnerability. An essential part of the process is redefining the relationship with rest. For those who have mastered the art of functioning without living, rest can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. Silence becomes an invitation for suppressed sensations to surface, and unstructured time may trigger anxiety. But gradually, the nervous system learns to distinguish between real threat and safe stillness. Sleep, leisure, and even idleness are reframed not as inefficiency, but as essential opportunities for integration and renewal. You begin to understand that rest is not weakness. It is a vital signal that you are human. Self-expression, creativity, and play emerge as critical tools for reclaiming life. They serve as bridges between the disciplined, controlled self and the more spontaneous, feeling self that has been neglected. Engaging in activities without performance metrics or expected outcomes is transformative. Drawing, singing, dancing, writing, or simply experimenting in small ways reconnects the mind and body. It allows suppressed emotions to surface in a safe, contained environment. Each act of creativity reinforces the nervous system's capacity to tolerate unpredictability, pleasure, and vulnerability. The body itself becomes a focus of restoration. Movement, stretching, and mindful exercise are not just about optimizing output, they are about reconnecting with sensation. Breathing exercises, yoga, or even slow walks allow you to inhabit your own physicality in ways that were previously denied. The body is the first site where the disconnect between functioning and living can be noticed and gently healed. Through somatic awareness, you regain access to internal cues, rediscover pleasure, and begin to feel fully alive again. Emotional literacy is another cornerstone. Learning to identify, name, and validate your own feelings, even those previously ignored or suppressed, is essential. Journaling, therapy, or deep self-reflection provide channels for this process. Slowly, patterns of avoidance are replaced with patterns of acknowledgement. The once hidden internal landscape becomes visible, and over time, the nervous system recalibrates to treat emotional expression as safe, rather than threatening. The path to living fully is neither linear nor free of discomfort. Relapses are inevitable. There will be days when control feels essential, when the pull of efficiency and predictability outweighs the desire for presence. Yet, each conscious step toward feeling, connecting, and embracing life chips away at the layers of suppression. The nervous system gradually learns a new script, one where survival and vitality are not in opposition, but can coexist. The final step in reclaiming life is integration. All the insights, practices, and moments of self-observation must converge into a lived experience. It is not enough to intellectually understand that you have been functioning without truly living. You must allow that understanding to inform your daily choices, interactions, and emotional responses. Integration means letting your internal world and external actions align, gradually dissolving the invisible wall that once separated them. As you embrace this alignment, you begin to notice subtle shifts. Tasks are approached with purpose rather than compulsion. Social interactions are infused with presence rather than obligation. Joy, curiosity, and spontaneous laughter are no longer fleeting intruders in an otherwise efficient existence. They become natural rhythms of life. Even pain and discomfort, previously avoided, are experienced fully, providing clarity, resilience, and emotional depth. The contrast between the old functional self and the newly integrated self is stark. You are no longer merely surviving. You are participating in life, fully and authentically. The ripple effects extend beyond yourself. Relationships deepen not because you do more, but because you allow yourself to be more. Friends, family, and partners respond to the authenticity you radiate. The nervous system of those around you adjusts, mirroring the new openness you have cultivated. Communities thrive not just on output, but on genuine human presence. Your life begins to feel expansive rather than constrained, rich in texture rather than flattened by efficiency. Yet the journey does not end. Living fully is a continuous practice. There will be moments when old patterns re-emerge, when the familiar pull of functioning without feeling tempts you back into efficiency-driven numbness. Awareness is the tool that keeps you on track. Each moment of noticing, Each conscious decision to feel, connect, or rest strengthens the neural pathways of living. The process is lifelong, iterative, and deeply rewarding. Ultimately, the lesson is simple but profound. Survival is not the same as life. Functioning is not the same as thriving. You are allowed to stop, to feel, to play, to rest, to fail, to love, and to exist fully in every dimension of your being. Life is not a series of tasks to complete. It is a lived experience, meant to be felt from the inside out. If this video resonated with you, if it illuminated aspects of your own journey or inspired reflection, subscribe to our channel. We dive deep into human psychology, explore the nuances of behavior, and provide insights that help you understand yourself and others more fully. By subscribing, you'll join a community dedicated to uncovering the patterns of the mind and learning how to live consciously, authentically, and with presence. Thank you for watching, and remember, you are not just surviving. You have the power to start truly living.